Well, thank you very much for giving the opportunity. It's really very timely to speak about Palestine and Israel at this very critical moment. Obviously, the issue of Westlessness has to do with the West, because the West has been West-centric when it comes to international affairs. But I would like to draw the attention of the audience that also, when we speak about Westlessness, we should also look at the issue in terms of core and periphery, and that the core and periphery paradigm has collapsed simply because there has been so many cores that has been established at the regional level. But the whole idea of international law that has been the focus of our discussion has been based on the German philosopher Immanuel Kant, as well as the principles of Woodrow Wilson that has been there since the First War. When we speak about international order, international law, it is very unfortunate that when it comes to Palestine, international law has not proven to be a successful story. Now, in the conflict of Palestine-Israel, there has been many solutions that has been proposed to solve the conflict. Nearly all solutions have been based on two states, i.e. the partition of the land. The international solution for the conflict has been based on partition of the land, two states, whether the 1937 partition plan, the 1947 partition plan, United Nations resolutions, and so on and so forth. The Israeli solutions for the conflict has always been based on autonomy for the Palestinians. Since 1917, the Balfour Declaration, until recently, the whole Israeli paradigm for solving the conflict was only religious and civil rights for Palestinians that does not really fulfill the aspirations of their political rights in living in an independent, sovereign, contiguous Palestinian state. Palestinian solutions for the conflict have been focused on liberation all of Palestine, and then the Palestinian compromise has reached a stage in which Palestinians have accepted two-state solution. The Arab solution for the conflict has been based on the Arab Peace Initiative, which is the most important initiative and the most important opportunity that Israel has totally and fully missed. The Arab Peace Initiative was based on Israeli withdrawal and return of normalization of all Arab relations with Israel. When it comes to opportunities, the Palestinians have seized, not missed, Palestinians have seized every opportunity. Palestinians have joined the Madrid conference as part of the Jordanian delegation. Palestinians have been in Oslo and have accepted Oslo as an interim arrangement, leaving all core issues for final status. Palestinians have accepted the interim agreement and has created the Palestinian Interim Authority, again as an interim measure to give chance for peace at Oslo. We have negotiated with Shamir, Rabin, Peres, Olmert, Sharon, and Netanyahu. And we have worked with all American administration, from Clinton to Bush the father, Bush the son, Obama, and even President Trump. The problem with the Palestinian-Israeli talks, the failure of which has been simply because these talks were never based on international law and United Nations resolutions, except for what James Baker has drafted in October 1991 during the Madrid Peace Conference. The failure of the past attempts has to do with the following. One, there was no agreed terms of reference for the peace talks. And second, there has been no confidence building measures. Thirdly, there was no honest broker. Fourth, the time frame was never there. And fifth, there were really no good intentions. So these are the 5 reasons behind the total failure of these attempts, which means that if we are looking for a recipe for success for the peace talks, it has to be based on agreed upon terms of reference, honest broker, time frame, confidence building measures, and negotiations with good faith. The Trump proposal is a very dangerous one. simply because it has been based on a new paradigm. And the Trump paradigm that has to do with the Palestinian has been based on the following. Defeat them, so they surrender, so they accept. This is the Trump paradigm. Therefore, part of it was simply implemented even before the release of the Trump initiative or the Trump proposal. Defeat them, so they accept, so they surrender. Defeat them, so they surrender, so they accept. This is what Trump has been doing with the Palestinians. And this has to do with closing the Palestine office in Washington, moving the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, declaring that Jerusalem is the eternal capital of the state of Israel, and stopping all funding for UNRWA that has to do with refugees as well as for the Palestinian Authority. When this Trump initiative was launched, we have realized that parts of it and most of it is actually not for negotiations. This is a proposal that is about implementation. And only yesterday, the Israelis and Americans, they have formed a committee to draw the maps in final shape. So therefore, this proposal is not a proposal for negotiation. This proposal is for implementation that has given the Israelis an immediate right to start the annexation of the Jordan Valley, Jerusalem, and other parts of the Palestinian territory. This Trump proposal, for me, really is no more than a memo of understanding between Netanyahu and Trump. You cannot really call it a peace plan. The maximum that we can label to it is a memo of understanding. It has been part of the election campaign of President Trump and also part of the election campaign of Mr. Netanyahu when it comes to the timing of the launching of the proposal. The Israeli part is for immediate implementation, and the Palestinian part, the Palestinians have to qualify for that after 4 years based on 4 conditions. That the Palestinians have to accept Israel as a Jewish state, we have to be good guys, and we have to act in accordance with Israeli performance criteria, recognizing Jerusalem as eternal capital of the state of Israel. What Trump is offering is an entity that has no sovereignty, that is not contiguous, that does not include Jerusalem, that does not include refugees, that keeps 720,000 Jewish settlers in the Palestinian territory living in 221 Jewish settlements. The plan is about annexation of 40% of the Palestinian territory. The land that will be annexed is in total of 2,000 square kilometers, and what will be offered is a compensation of 1,000 square kilometers scattered somewhere on the Negev desert on the borders with Egypt, and the plots that are allocated for residential and industrial zones are and has been a dumping place for Israeli nuclear waste. These are the 2 proposed areas that has been proposed to the Palestinians for compensation of territoriality and so on. Last point that has to do with the proposal. It is no more than a Bantustan where the Palestinians are totally isolated in islands, totally disconnected. And the connectivity between Hebron, Ramallah, and Nablus is either through a bridge or a tunnel, which means that this can be closed in a second or in a minute. The money side of the story, it is not and has not been proposed to support the political track. The money that has been proposed is actually a trade-off between politics and money. And this is simply a price for concession. It is not money that has been designated for the support of the proposal. Now, the Palestinians have fully, all of us, we have been united to reject this plan. Arabs, the Arab Summit and the Arab Ministers of Foreign Affairs who were gathering and who had a meeting under the auspices of the Arab League have rejected this. Ministers of Foreign Affairs of Islamic countries have also rejected that. African Union meeting in Addis Ababa just a few days ago has totally rejected that. Most of the European countries have rejected it, and Mr. Borrell the Speaker of Foreign Affairs of the European Union has issued a statement to fully and totally reject. Jewish organizations in Washington, 107 congressmen, senators have all rejected this. In brief, Trump has no partner, not in Europe, not in the Arab world, and not in Palestine. The Trump initiative has been born dead, and it will even be buried very soon. In conclusion, I would like to speak about the way forward. Where do we go from here? First, we have a few landmarks to watch. There are elections in Israel on March 2nd. Whether Mr. Bini or Bibi will be elected for us, I said earlier that the difference between Bini and Bibi is not more than a difference between Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola. But still, there is a slight difference. And I know that Mr. Gantz has been trapped because there is no way that a Prime Minister of Israel will give up Jordan Valley and Jerusalem. So in the same way that Netanyahu was pushing for things in that direction, Mr. Gantz will be trapped in this new emerging reality. The problem is the debate in Israel today is not between those who want peace and those who want a manifestation of occupation. The problem today is the debate in Israel is between those who want to maintain the status quo and those who want to annex certain parts of the West Bank. Both ways, it is not good for the way forward. What I think is that we should create a coalition, an international coalition to preserve the two-state solution, because it is very serious that the two-state solution, which does enjoy an international consensus, is in serious danger. More than that, my dear friend Boris, bilateralism as a paradigm has totally failed to solve the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Therefore, we have to move from bilateralism to multilateralism. If multilateralism is a bot, the content of that bot should be international law, United Nations resolutions that has to do with Palestine. And our president has called for an international conference to solve the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. I call upon Europe to give a serious reply to the Trump initiative, ministers of foreign affairs who are meeting tomorrow, to be clear and explicit, loud voice and clear in rejecting this proposal and not to leave a vacuum. We have to fill the vacuum through proposing an international conference with international legitimacy and so on. The Israeli measures to annex certain parts of the West Bank, it does oblige all of us to come strong in response to these measures by recognizing Palestine as a state on the borders of 67 with Jerusalem as its capital. Mr. Chairman, I think there has so much talk about international law. Over dinner last night, the United Nations has been given an award, and all United Nations organization has been mentioned. One single organization that has not been singled out was UNRWA. And I hope that all of us will continue to focus on this very important mechanism to deal with Palestinian refugees, the UNRWA. At a time when the Americans have launched financial war on UNRWA to drain its financial sources, that has to do with simply removing fully and totally the issue of Palestinian refugees from the negotiating table, it is so important that our focus will continue to be on UNRWA. The Human Rights Council has announced or published a list of international companies working in the Israeli settlements. And I hope that the CEOs and the chairpersons of these companies will take this as a very alarming situation in which they will be stand legally responsible and liable for all the illegal actions that are conducted by these companies in the Palestinian territories. Our strategy is very clear. We need to end occupation. We need to establish an independent Palestinian state on the border of 67, which is only 22% of what used to be called Palestine. This is a historical compromise that the Palestinians have made, and we stand solid on this until now. If there has to be a new mechanism, we have to move from bilateralism to multilateralism, and the way that we have decided to gradually disengage from the colonial dependency that has been imposed on us by the fact that Palestine is under occupation. So if there is a failure at the macro level, we are going to do it at the very micro level, i.e. disengage gradually from this colonial dependency. I hope that the time is right in which all of us, we stand solid on the side of international law, on the side of international legitimacy, on the principles and resolutions that has to do with international law, and Israel is not an exempt of being under international law. Thank you so much. Thank you.
We move.
I think we're going to have Eshtiة here. We'll have you there.
We move.
We'll have you there.
You told me here.
Did I? In that case,
انت هتقعد معانا كمان. هاي.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister Eshtiة. You've given us a lot to contemplate and work on there, and I'm going to welcome the audience, and we're going to have a conversation, and we're going to open it up to you. As you saw, there's the opportunity to use the app to send questions. I'll see those here, but we're also going to bring in people with their own voices to join our conversation. I wanted to turn first to you, Secretary General Abu Raith.